My dog groomer called me and asked, "Why does your dog respond to commands in a language you claim not to speak?" I stared at my phone, confused. "What are you talking about?" "Your dog, Apollo," Melissa said. "He wouldn't listen to English commands, but when my assistant spoke Russian, he obeyed perfectly." My stomach dropped. "Russian?" She said sit in Russian as a joke, and he sat instantly. Then stay and come. He responded to everything flawlessly. I adopted Apollo from a rescue 3 months ago. Stray German shepherd. No collar, no microchip, just wandering the streets. Maybe he picked it up somewhere, I said. "This level of training takes months," Melissa said. "Someone taught him Russian commands." I thanked her and hung up, staring at Apollo, who was sprawled on my couch like he owned the place. He looked back at me with those big brown eyes, completely innocent. I pulled up Google Translate and typed in basic commands. Sit, stay, come, down. I walked over to Apollo and said the Russian word for sit. He sat immediately. My hands started shaking. I tried stay in Russian. He stayed, eyes locked on mine. I tried down. He dropped to the floor without hesitation. This dog wasn't a stray. Someone trained him extensively, and that someone was Russian. I called the rescue shelter and demanded answers. After being transferred 3 times, someone finally remembered him. We picked him up near the industrial district. Closed warehouse area. No microchip, no collar, no missing reports. What warehouse? One of those old storage facilities off Highway 7. Why? I hung up and opened Google Maps. Highway 7 Industrial District. I grabbed my keys. Apollo followed me to the door. 20 minutes later, I pulled up to the 3rd warehouse on my list. The first 2 were empty, but this one looked different. Newer fence, shiny padlock, fresh tire tracks. I felt my heart pounding as I walked closer. Apollo stayed right by my side, but his demeanor changed. His ears went back. His tail stopped wagging. That's when I heard voices inside. Speaking Russian, I froze. Apollo growled, low and deep, something I'd never heard him do before. I pulled out my phone and called 911, whispering my location and what I was hearing. The dispatcher told me to leave immediately and wait for police. I started backing toward my car, but then I heard something that made my blood run cold. Barking. Multiple dogs barking, and not happy barking. Desperate barking. I couldn't just leave. I crept closer to a broken window and looked inside. Cages. Dozens of them. Dogs inside. All breeds, all sizes. Men in tactical gear speaking Russian, inspecting the dogs like livestock. One man pointed at a Rottweiler and led it toward a van. They were trafficking dogs. Apollo wasn't a stray. He was stolen, and somehow he escaped. Sirens wailed in the distance. Police swarmed the warehouse within minutes. Officers breached the doors and arrested 4 men while bringing out the dogs one by one. A detective found me 20 minutes later, still crouched behind the dumpster with Apollo pressed against my leg. "You the one who called this in?" I nodded, barely able to speak. He looked down at Apollo. "This your dog?" "Yeah, I adopted him 3 months ago from a shelter. I didn't know he was stolen until today." The detective crouched down and scratched Apollo behind the ears. "This operation's been running for 2 years. We've been trying to find it for months. You just shut down one of the biggest dog trafficking rings in the state." He stood up and handed me his card. "We'll need a statement, but your dog's a hero. He led you right to them." I looked down at Apollo, who was wagging his tail again, completely oblivious to the magnitude of what just happened. The detective paused before walking away. "By the way, we're going to need to check our database. If Apollo was reported stolen, his original owner might want him back." My heart sank. I hadn't even thought about that. 3 days later, I got the call. Apollo's original owner had been contacted. A Russian diplomat who reported his dog missing 2 years ago after a break-in at his home. I drove to the police station. Apollo in the back seat. My eyes burning with tears I refused to let fall. The diplomat was waiting inside. Older man, kind face, expensive suit. When he saw Apollo, his whole face lit up. Apollo saw him and went ballistic, jumping, whining, tail wagging so hard his whole body shook. I felt my heart shatter. The diplomat hugged Apollo for a long moment, then looked up at me with tears in his eyes. "Thank you for taking care of him. Thank you for finding him." I nodded, unable to speak. He stood up and did something I didn't expect. He handed me Apollo's leash. "I'm retiring next month and moving back to Moscow. I can't take him on the plane and he's been through enough. He's happy with you. I can see that." He scratched Apollo one last time. Besides, he always loved Americans more than Russians anyway. Apollo stayed with me. The diplomat visits twice a year, and I finally taught Apollo commands in English, though he still responds better to Russian.